For that. We certainly hope you can bring us some of that breakfast once you are done. But meanwhile, let's carry on with our discussion right here in studio. Honorable Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, Migori Woman Rep, now joins us in the program. Welcome so much to the broadcast.
Thank you.
I want to briefly reference, and I can actually start with bringing you in. We are told, of course, that the Siaya County Assembly has adopted a proposal to set up the People's Assembly in the county as a way of forcing a repeat, or that's at least how one of the authors in the paper looks at it, of forcing a repeat presidential election in February 2018. The author, it's probably in the Standard of the Nation, used the word forcing a repeat presidential election. Can you force a repeat presidential election? Is that the plan, or is the author misquoting the National Super Alliance?
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers. I think Kenyans use words sometimes where they don't really belong, because the issue is, according to NASA and our leaders in the team, the issue is we have really had not had a real election. We had some sham election where even our presidential candidate was forced, the name forced on the ballot when he had declared that he would not participate. So it is wrong to say that we are forcing. We are not forcing. We've been asking for a fair, free, credible presidential election, which according to us has not really taken place in Kenya. So I really think using the word forcing may not apply in our case.
Okay.
But the case of Siaya, I think what the motion is all about is already made public, and it was just a matter of discussing it and accepting it and applied the way it is. The issue is we are lobbying, or we are creating a scenario where the People's Assembly can actually be carried out.
Briefly, for the benefit of our viewers who may not have the full story, so moving forward in a county like Siaya, which we can use as the example because they've already gone ahead, what do you expect to be seeing now in Siaya County?
We want to see people who can collect themselves, discuss themselves, and determine what they do. And this is what we are talking about in the entire country. Waigwa, the things that are happening in our country requires that every Kenyans acknowledge that we have realized, or we have reached a level where people are not together anymore.
Okay.
For example, if you are talking about the case of the election and the fairness and the irregularities and all those things, each person is seemingly looking at this thing from their own perspective, and it is not a unified front. And that way, we are losing, or we have lost our country. And this is what the People's Assembly needs to restore. So
for the People's Assembly, and I know, Senator, you need to come in, how will it work? When the People's Assembly make a directive, they sit down, they discuss a certain issue and agree that this is the way forward. Because constitutionally, People's Assemblies are not recognized in our constitution. In fact, they were approved, I believe, by the county assemblies. Will they then take their directives or their agreements to the county assembly to approve? How will it work?
Exactly like that. You see, what is in our constitution, the real chapter 1, what we are talking about is the sovereignty of the power of the people. But
there are systems in which the power of the people is exercised.
The system is, the constitution says the people can elect others to represent them. That is indirect exercise, but they can also exercise the same power directly. So the scenario we are having in Kenya is a scenario where this election to represent others is failing. And what we are saying is now the people themselves can then still sit down and make decisions within those frameworks, because we already have these county assemblies. And if this thing is done throughout the country, then people will reach some compromise. Okay. Like what we are saying, by the end of it all, there will be representations again of the same people. They can give various groups, stakeholders, to represent in a wider national People's Assembly, and that would still go ahead and determine the way forward, like the resolutions that need to be made, the changes that we need to make, the agreements that need to come out, so that we at least maintain a people's-centered kind of governance.
I need to interrupt you there. Later on, I'll come back to you to find out whether these People Assembly will usurp the power of the county assemblies, which I believe are supposed to be acting on behalf of the people. I'll come back to you for that. Senator Matangi, come in now.
Yeah, if Wahiga, you allow me, just very quickly, there are some issues that had been raised by my colleague earlier.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I would like to just very quickly mention, sometimes, unfortunately, in the course of these discussions, we run the risk of being not only over repetitive, but saying the same thing over and over again. And I believe if you look at the general atmosphere of the Kenyan psyche now, that's why you find most of the members of the public would be feeling a bit tired of the political scenario and debate. Because you find that the things we say tomorrow will get repeated, but albeit in a different way, because our leaders, for example, on the NASA side, refuse to move forward. I want just to say very quickly, for example, you see, this argument about the credibility of elections. Tell me, Wahiga, supposing you were to argue that the employment system in royal media is rotten, and everybody who gets here gets employed illegally. It is not right. And you're sitting right where you are. You're earning a salary. You are saying as Wahiga, and though you give your credentials, you're part of the team that is having here. And you don't have the audacity in the first place to say, I cannot serve in an illegal system that's recruiting people, subvertively. So if you look at, for example, our two colleagues here who are here from NASA, you'd ask yourself, if one would be arguing really about credibility of elections that were held either on the 8th of August that they challenged, or even later, why on earth would they be serving via that election and earning a salary via that election? And you see, we also need to quickly point out that this repeated story of boycotting the election, what was the turnout? The elections were not legitimate. One, we need to, like I said, unfortunately at the expense of sounding repetitive, to remind all our viewers and our colleagues that we are in a democratic state that also recognizes that, Wahiga, you have a right not to go and vote. And once you choose not to go and vote, you are still within practicing and exercising your right not to. And that does not invalidate. And because they are fond of using a lot of similes and similarities about football matches. And so, and I also remember that you used to be a presenter in sports, so you must be good at that. I mean, if you go to face a team and you opt to withdraw or not show up for the match, then what happens is the other team will be declared winners by virtue of your withdrawal. I mean, if you just simply say you don't want to participate, and I don't think that this question of how many people came out, if you properly look at the numbers that came out during the August 8 elections, the number of votes the president got and the ones that Raila got, and all the others actually, the turnout was somewhere below 16 million. In total of the number of votes. So even if you did simple arithmetic and said what is then the current 7.3 and less that story with the turnout and the fact that they didn't show up, what is the difference? It will still show you that Kenyans voted the way they had voted on the 8th. I mean, there is no major difference. Those people that didn't come out, and you see where the story gets lost when you hear about this turnout story, is because IEBC, of course, had registered 19 point something million people, but those are not the people that came out to vote even during the other election. Now, lastly, because
Honorable Hamala to come in.
Yeah, because of this story about the people's assemblies, and I think that's important to put in context very clearly for Kenyans to understand, because in the first place, can we say to our colleagues in NASA, I think you have opted to play and try a very dangerous experiment with our democracy. I mean, first, Wahiga, let Kenyans know in the first place, without mincing words or batting an eyelid, that proposal is not only preposterous, but it is absolutely illegal. And I want to remind let me make my point. Let me make my point. I want to remind these gentlemen, even their leaders who were out propagating the story. I saw Honorable Wetangula, leading a big team there in a media show. On the day when they went to take the oath of office, including my colleagues here, they lifted either the Bible or their right hand. And you know what they said in that oath of office? That I shall be true to the Constitution of Kenya.
They say that they are true to the Constitution. Okay, briefly, let him come in.
In that Constitution that they're talking about, and that is why you hear the story about we the people and we the people, and you'd ask yourself, Wahiga, if you do not believe in that story about the People's Assembly, you believe in your county assembly, does it mean that you're not a part of the people of Kenya? Because this argument about, and it is a deliberate misinterpretation of the Constitution on the question of the power of the people on Article 1, that the power belongs to the people. That is not what it is. It is not intended to subvert the Constitution itself. Actually, if you talk to any lawyer,
fair enough,
they'll be saying,
I need to allow him to Honorable Hamala come in.
Yes, thank you. Senator Matangi, just a little correction, my senior. Out there, people want to move on, yes. People are not tired with the impasse. People are tired with election theft. That is what is out there. People want to go to a free, fair, and credible election whereby when they cast their vote counts. And so it's not repetition. It's not like we are trying to repeat or we are trying to precipitate or cause a situation where we can thrive. We in NASA are already thriving with the numbers in this country. But a few people in power have suppressed those that don't have the power. And even in central Kenya, where I have great friends, where I would even want to move and live, great people. We in Kakamega, we live together with all the tribes. We've never fought, and we will never fight, because it's not about we, the people. It is about fighting for our space in this country. Even there was voter apathy. People are not interested to vote. Even some of the numbers that were there, we even saw returning officer being beaten by a member of parliament over there so that he could cook the figures. So we can say...
I'm not sure that was entirely accurate.
Well,
but
we saw
okay,
it.
go ahead.
Saw it.
I just need to say that for the
saying what I saw.
Audience.
All the world saw it.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me go on. Let me say this. We in NASA, we don't want to cause chaos. The People's Assembly, just like Dr. Pamela puts it, it is about the people. Our Constitution is very clear. And even my senior should even know it better than myself, because he's been there more longer than me, that the people of this country are more sovereign. When things don't work, when the leaders become crooked, then the people can take back their power and exercise and lead themselves as they should. And so what we are dealing with right now, even in Kakamega, I'm so happy about Kakamega County Assembly. They are passing this thing on Monday. It's powerful. Even Vihiga, even Bungoma, they are really moving forward with it, and we're going to be there to see them do it. And it is about what we want is not to cause chaos. That one should not be spoken here, because it's a lie.
How will you prevent certain elements from not using your directive to do whatever they want to do? I
was in Kakamega during the no
and
reforms.
Case in point is a protest where one or two people then decide this is my chance to steal or to benefit. So how will you control this process?
No reforms, no election demonstrations. I led them myself in Kakamega town. I led them, several of them. Nothing was stolen. Nobody was hurt. We didn't fight with the police. The police were on the sides. They just looked at us. And I even commend the police in Kakamega. I can't demonize them. They did not. We had no problems in Kakamega. And so we are in a good position to help our people, to guide them during demonstrations, because in my own constituents of Lurambi, there's no shop that was broken. Nothing.
Okay. I need to give Honorable Sankoka a chance to respond. Honorable Diembo, I'm coming to you.
Yes, actually, the sovereignty of the people of this country lies on the people. But they can give that sovereignty through elected leaders to their own representative. And if they want to withdraw, there is a way of withdrawing that sovereignty so that it goes back to the people, not because a certain category of people have decided that now we have to withdraw. And you know, it is funny that now we'll have the People Assembly now in Siaya. So what will be the work of the County Assembly of Siaya?
Okay.
Now we will also we will also have the People Assembly from where Dr. Pamela come from,
Migori.
Honorable Migori, and then I pray that your opponent will become the chair of the People Assembly or the president of the People Assembly there, and then you will test now that we really needed to have the elected leaders representing people, because that is what democracy is all about. And then the other issue is the election were carried out on 8th August. The turnout on 26th of October was a bit lower. There was an election in Kitutu Church where the turnout was 37%. Do we now want to say that was a sham election? We are saying the election of 8 August was nullified. Now what stand? It was null and void. So it is no longer, did not even take place. Now what we have is the election of 26th of August. Of October. And somebody is saying that the name of Honorable Raila Odinga was forced into the ballot. He didn't sign the requisite form 24A. So if you do not sign the requisite form of 24A, the IEBC cannot just withdraw your name because of hearsay, because you wrote a letter. Okay. Because there is a process of... I
was about to say he wrote a letter, but go ahead.
Yes, he wrote a letter of withdrawal, but that is not the process. Because Wahiga, if you today you want maybe to withdraw your services from Citizen, I believe there is a process of you withdrawing. But not that we'll tell Willis Raburu, I want to withdraw, now I want to go. So, and then that one become an affirmative.
Legal minds, though, Honorable Sankok, are conflicted on the use of that particular form, when it's applicable and when it's not. So some legal minds say Honorable Raila Odinga was justified in withdrawing in the way he did.
No. You know, the constitution is there and the process is there. It is IEBC. It's not how I will interpret, because Dr. Pamela will interpret to favor herself. Myself, I will interpret the way it will favor me. But then what was the use of that form for IEBC that you have to fill if you want to withdraw?
Fair enough. Honorable Dembo, come in.
Thank you very much. You know, the issue of this game of words is not helping Kenyan much. My Honorable Senator Wamatangi, I admire that name and actually the work that has gone into it. And when the people of Kiambu keep electing you, I support, because mimi pia ni mtu wa nyumbani. But the issue here, when we are saying we are taking a dangerous path, yes, Kenya, we have always had this scenario of allowing things to go wrong, and then nobody wants to face the wrong thing and correct it. And I think this is what has brought us to a scenario where we don't really listen to each other. In fact, it is so sad that as a mother, and more so a woman of God, I think what our Kenyan leaders have done, like when you are telling us that we are not true to the Constitution, the truth of the Constitution is the Constitution vests the power in the people. When we cannot talk as leaders, because I remember even at some stage, this issue of dialogue is featuring again. But there was a time that the NASA people were pushing for dialogue. And then our opponents and leaders in Jubilee would keep shouting about the Nusumkate, Nusumkate. I really don't think that when I need to dialogue with you, then all I need is half of what you have. It's what we need is understanding a common path, something that everybody else can ascribe to. And what we are seeing in our country is we are true. In fact, if there is anybody who is true to the Constitution, it is the NASA team. Because we are saying it has gone wrong. We need a correction.
Don't you feel that Raila's call for an interim government plays into the narrative that Nusum Kati was what NASA wanted?
Not really. What Raila has said is not that we have an interim government so that we negotiate how to share. He's saying we negotiate and agree on how we are doing a fair, credible election, free election. So by the end of the day, we will still have a president who is fairly elected by the people. Like when we see and we talk about this so-called turnout, and even you are citing cases of where people went to demo. I want to tell you, even in Migori, where we are mourning almost the highest number of people who were brutally murdered by the police, the people were peaceful until this, I don't want to call them the police, because some of them were wearing things that I've never seen our policemen wear. You know, these people came and forced the people now into this kind of violence. In fact, I also led one of such walks in Rongo and Awendo, and there was nobody who threw anything at anyone until these policemen came, and they now started even looking for people from the houses. Like what was happening in Migori, I came in when he was talking about the concept of the boycott. It was not forced on the people. The issue is there was this message, people were being forced out of their houses to go and vote. That is where the things spilled over.
People were being forced out
that
of their
was
houses
the approach that the police were using, that people had to vote. And we are saying, what is going wrong in our country?
Okay, I'll give you a chance to respond. What is going wrong?
You don't have to say a lie, because I was there in Migori, you were not. So please allow me to say what I know happened.
But you cannot lie.
And what I'm saying is, we cannot talk of when we give the people the power to do the right thing or to see, because we have exposed. Like when Sankok, my brother here, keeps repeating that a few people. In everything, when something is going wrong, even in this house, a fire can break there and he sees it for the first time. It would not be right for him to keep quiet without shouting fire. So the few people that you are really trying to demonize have just seen the wrong thing that is happening in our country, and we need to actually correct it.
I need to give Senator a chance. Honorable Sankok asked you a question. What will be the work of the county assemblies if the people's assemblies will work out as envisioned by NASA?
What is there is the house that people, the county assemblies, or even our own national assembly, are still Kenyans who can actually participate in that same people.
Are you not taking away some of their
assembly.
duties? Are you not taking away some of their duties? Could these issues that NASA have not be discussed by the county assemblies?
It has failed. What we are saying here, the government, the system as it is, has failed. Brother,
what is the process?
Okay,
the process here is the House and its members will participate in the proceedings of that House Assembly. I mean the People's Assembly.
Because there must be a leader. Because there must be a
special apology will be formed.
Yes. She has had your question.
Yes, but once it is constituted, how will they elect or select the members of that People Assembly?
Thank you for that question. Go ahead, briefly answer. I need to
there will be appointed college which will then oversee the determination of that.
Where will the resources to run that come from? The counties?
The counties or from wherever. The same resources that we are wasting to kill people can be used to do that. Why not?
Okay. I'm not sure about your last comment there.
You know,
but I can allow Senator to come in.
You know, that's why I said from the onset that that what the NASA team is doing is trying and playing an extremely dangerous experiment on our peace processes, on our democracy, and on our constitutionalism.
Could you really have preempted that process by sitting to talk with NASA earlier? And you can answer that once you're done. Go ahead.
I will. But you see, one thing that we must remind ourselves, and I think I said here sometimes before, that we are probably in the whole world right now the country with the youngest constitution. And the kind of tests we are putting our constitution to can only remind us one thing. You remember, Moi is remembered for many, many things, including some of them that are not so good. But we all remember him for one message that he passed. You remember when he said that siasa mbaya, maisha baya, maisha mbaya. And, you know, unless now this team can place their nationalism ahead of their political interests, then they would really. And you see what
some would ask Jubilee the same question.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you this. You see, now they are all up in arms complaining that our people never got the chance to come out and vote. We never expressed ourselves. And the question that history will bear on them is who disenfranchised the people of those counties that never voted. And I'll tell you who. It is their own leaders. See, this thing, and you've asked a very good question. I hope it will find an answer to them, from them, eventually.
As you answer some of my questions as
when they talk about this People's Assembly. And anyway, for purposes of clarity to our viewers, it is important to know that the People's Assemblies, they are just calling that in many English words, is really the barazas that you normally see at Jivanji Garden sometimes, sometimes on Moy Avenue, you know, and sometimes they are near the coffee house around around City Hall. Those are the kind of barazas that they have baptized into women, into what they are calling the People's Assemblies. And so, you know, the question you'll be asking yourself is, when a whole elected leadership chooses to sidetrack, leave the path of non-constitutional democracy, and then jump into this kind of proposal of telling the people in the county assembly, and it's coming from the national leaders, leave the county assembly premises where you are guided by standing orders, where you are guided by the law, and go to the street and sit somewhere and call yourself a People's Assembly and make decisions and say that this is a college that will do these kind of things. Now, where are you going? And that's why I said, you know, for purposes of them understanding. And as you bring Hamala, that's the point I wanted to finalize with, because it's for him. You know, he said very loudly that they are fighting so that they can be in government. And I will tell you,
I don't think.
He said they're struggling so that they can be in government. That was his comment. And I will tell you why.
I also had that.
And let me remind him. Let me remind him. I'm clear. Yes, I'm very clear. Yes, verbatim. He said.
Which version of the Bible?
He said that they are struggling so that they can be in government. I just wanted to remind him. Very simple. That you know, they are forgetting a very simple provision of our law, that whether they are in NASA, wherever they are in government. If you look at the vehicle that Wetangula drives, it's a GK. If you look at the vehicle that their minority leader drives, it's a GK. These people are firmly in government. The government comprises of those three arms, and that's why the only thing that they are doing is within the arm of government of legislature. They are imploding the system.
I, with due respect to my senior, the senator, I just didn't know he can lie. Probably that's how they lie in the computer.
No, this guy is a pastor. He cannot lie.
Let me say this. Number one, let me go back to what the senator said earlier on, that we in NASA, especially we who are in the National Assembly or in the Senate or in the county assemblies, we know there is a problem in IEBC, therefore there is no moral standing for us to be in parliament. We should have also resigned. We know it very clearly that the disputed election is the presidential election. That is the disputed election. IEBC missed the presidential election. That is the bone of contention. And he has no moral authority to question about me receiving a salary or Wetangula being driven in a GK, because that's not his money. This is taxpayers' money. It's our people. My people in Larambe are the ones who pay those taxes. So when I hear from the Jubilee, they're receiving salary, they talk, you know, they are priding and chiding us. They're chiding us. They're chiding us. In my language, we say "hurobola." You know, they're chiding us on salary. That's a new terminology.
No, you're teaching us.
He's speaking in tongues.
Yeah, I'm speaking in tongues. Yeah, they're chiding us as if it is their money. This money is not President Uhuru's. It is not Deputy President's money. It is not Jubilee money. This is Kenyan money. And we as members of parliament, no one will be telling us about who's driving a GK or a minority leader, because you are a beneficiary of the taxpayers' money. And it's not only the wonderful people of Kiambu paying money, also the wonderful people of Kakamega are paying the money. So if I'm being paid a salary, it is from the taxes of the people of Kakamega, because they're also contributing. So let's not deviate. Let's not deviate that we've had a problem with the presidential election, and we are trying to bury our heads in the sand like ostriches, living in denial and just having a figment of our own imagination that somehow Raila Odinga will be washed under the carpet and will just disappear off the face of the earth, when we know very well that NASA controls over 60% of this country. When you can say you have the companies, we say we have the customers. And if you dare us, and we go out for 2 weeks, you're going to come and kneel before us. Because there's no Brookside. No Brookside.
From the world go, we have just said it is economic sabotage. It's even threatening now that we will go and kneel before. No. Nobody will kneel before anybody, because the customers are the people. It is not Mheshimiwa. Now, I have some few comments, because I know time is not on our side. Our honorable members from the NASA side, we accept that you give the people the power. Now withdraw your power, because we cannot have two centers of power. So just give the people power, resign, and give them, let them run now the power. And again, what will be the standing orders of this people assembly? How will they be controlled? How will they be financed? I hope I will be answered. The other issue is that, Wahiga, I want to make it very clear. Negotiation will not take place to create position in this country. After every election, we negotiate, we make position. Already, the wage bill is exorbitant. We have our professionals being on the streets. We need to pay them. We don't need to create position of the Prime Minister, as churches had suggested, so that, because it will require a lot of money to run them, this money can be diverted to pay our professionals. The other issue is that the president is willing to negotiate with all Kenyans, not an individual Kenyan, not at all. If then we need to negotiate with other leaders, then His Excellency Ndwale, maybe Murkomen, and I myself, we can meet with Raila and maybe negotiate at that particular level. Leaders, now if I say His Excellency,
surely.
Leaders,
finish,
No, I have something to say as well.
Protect me from this fellow. He's the leader of majority, is His Excellency, because maybe we have some arrangement in 2022. Maybe I'm just preempting, just the way you normally preempt about the Right Honorable Prime Minister, and he's a former Prime Minister. So it is not, you should not be hyped by using of terms.
Please finish your point,
So what I'm trying to say is that we will only have negotiation on the basis of moving forward as a country, on the basis of investment, on the basis of making sure that our people get employment, but not on the basis of individual creating position.
Sorry to say, but Brother Sankok, whenever you talk, I find yourself contradicting yourself and confusing everyone. When you are saying President Uhuru and Jubilee is ready to negotiate with all Kenyans and not just a specific individual, are you saying Raila is not a Kenyan? You know, that is what we are talking about. Exclusion and not listening to everybody, whether you think they are right or wrong. Right now, as we sit here, what we are saying, colleagues, we are not going to relent until there is fairness, justice, inclusion, and righteousness in the land. As we sit here, for example, you will allow me to say this. I have just found it calm. We are sitting here when they are Kenyan, about 17 or 20 of them, held hostage by Ugandan government, and they were fishing on Kenyan land. And then our senior government officials are saying they are not even aware. And if those people did something wrong, how do people do something wrong in Kenya and then they are arrested by Ugandan? What we are saying is that
although the Inspector General has said, he's not said that they are not aware. He has said it is possible that they had crossed some sort of boundary.
They have not crossed. This Remba Island is clearly in Kenya, and there is no crossing over to anywhere. And that's why we are saying, when a few of us feel like a section are Kenyans and a section are not Kenyans, this is where we are, and this is what needs to be harmonized. When our borders are encroached and our people are intimidated, as I sit here, there is a flag of Uganda in Migingo Island, which is squarely part of Kenya. It is a pity that we are refraining, we are saying like it is repetition. We have to repeat, because the same sin, the same wound is not healing. In any case, it is widening. And this is something that should worry anybody who calls themselves a leader. So what we are saying is that we can't say these people, you go to the street. In Kenya, let us warn It is not only us who are seated here who are credible and people who can think. We have professionals, we have church leaders, we have very serious community leaders in this country. So when you call these people to a dialogue, that is what we are calling a people's assembly. We have all sorts of professionals in Kenya. Even farmers are serious professionals who make sure we have food. But most of the time when as leaders in political arena are talking, we disregard these people and we think if we called them to a sitting to talk and define their path and also give an input of what they think is right to lead them and govern them, then that is a disorganized group. So I want to tell our colleagues, what we are talking about a people's assembly is not some disorganized, you know, by the street or by the way gathering as you are imagining. We are talking of serious men and women out there, professionals, these church people, community leaders, all sorts of us, including the politicians. Can we come back to the drawing board and chat a way forward, discuss and agree? How do we want to take our country forward? We want to take our country forward by making sure that this so-called democracy is not leaning on only one side. All the people of Kenya are involved in it, and a fair share of everything goes to everyone. Fairness in election, credibility of that election is key to our rebirth of the democracy or taking Kenya back to its path.
Okay. Senator Matangi, Jubilee has stated that should the Supreme Court not nullify the October 26 presidential election and President Uhuru Kenyatta is sworn in, then only are they willing to dialogue. What form of dialogue would that look like? Because NASA are very clear on their next few steps, but all we hear from Jubilee is, let's see what the Supreme Court does. If the president is sworn in, then dialogue can happen. What does that dialogue look like?
Yeah, can I first remind,
briefly,
can I very briefly remind my colleagues that you know, the Constitution says that the people exercise their power either directly or through their elected representatives. That's the Constitution. So you know, when leaders loudly then say that we have now decided to go and form those barazas that are called given the name, then what you're saying indirectly is that you have been unable to exercise the power given to you by the people to represent them. That's the message you're sending. And if that is the acknowledgement that you have been unable to lead your people, that is why you have taken the power back to them, because you are supposed to represent them
This
as
is also
the elected leaders. Then unfortunately,
we are still leading them.
That's why you are. But that's said and done. You know, I really, Wahiga, would want to mention something on this issue of economic sabotage and the boycott, because I hear, you know, most of you trying to glorify this you know, with our good bishop here saying that we will be kneeling before them. Very
I am not God.
You know, my bishop, anyway, I know the word kneeling can quickly come to your, by virtue of being a bishop, of course, you must have done a lot of kneeling and seen a lot of people kneeling. So you can be sure on this one question, there will be no kneeling. Now, but I want to remind you, and with a lot of humility, say that I find this debate on economic sabotage being informed by a lot of ignorance on sound economic principles. And I'll tell you why, you know, my colleagues. One, can you remind yourselves very, very recently, when Safaricom was floating its shares, Wahiga, ask yourself, who are the owners of Safaricom? Who bought the shares of Safaricom? When you're saying that you are sabotaging Safaricom, whom are you saying you are sabotaging? Forget those people who run the businesses of M-Pesa and what have you. Your villager in your own whatever is the one who went and bought shares of Safaricom. And those are the people you are saying you are sabotaging. I mean, you know, and I want to inform them as a finalize. Wahiga, when Safaricom was formed, when all those other companies they're mentioning, Brookside, Bidco, Who, Nation, what, all those they're mentioning, when they were formed, none of those companies ever came to call you and say, come and loud for us and bring us customers. Those companies are grown on sound economic planning and management. And it is the power and principles of supply and demand and need and no need that control business. You know, you may have that for a short while, but what that will do is, one, it will hurt your people. Two, it is going to hurt your politics. But you may proceed with it. Now, lastly, on this question on this question of dialogue, my colleague here said that that we should not be hoping that Raila, who controls half the country, will disappear. Nobody has been hoping he will disappear. We have only been hoping that he will be true to the Constitution, that you know, as you saw in the US when Al Gore was running against George W. Bush, and he won the popular vote. But the country's law said that the one who wins through this system is the one who becomes president.
Okay.
Then that in the same way, Raila would be true to the democracy he says, and we know he has fought for in many respects, and say, yes, I went to the election, I have lost the election, but I am willing, as we did with the Supreme Court ruling, ready to abide with the law.
He disagrees.
So you know the kind of dialogue we're intending to have.
No. He says that there was no election. He said that.
That is said by himself.
No.
But the facts,
because you're quoting him,
but the facts are different. And that's why I use the word magnanimity.
Okay,
and honestly,
fair enough.
But on the question, there's a question you asked on dialogue.
I need to interrupt you because I will not give the other panelists adequate time. Please forgive me for this. A quick SMS that I need to read before I allow each of you to make a closing statement. Somebody says here, we are tired of elections. Politicians are hungry for power. They go on to say that Jubilee and NASA, from where they stand, look like one and the same thing. Not any of them is concerned with that humble Kenyan in the village. I can give each of you a chance to respond to that as you make your closing statements. Honorable Hamala, let me start with you.
Yeah, Wahika, thank you very much. I just want to talk to Senator Wamatangi a little bit, that the People's Assembly are not just, the way he's just dismissive, that these are just some busybodies somewhere in Jivanji, somewhere on Tomboya Street, somewhere in Muliro Garden in Kakamega. That is not the issue. These are really credible leaders, just like Honorable Dr. Pamela put it. We have great people out there. We have religious leaders like the NCCK. We have civil society. We have professionals. We have business community. And all this, the youth, the women. These people also have a voice. And it is not about to cause chaos. It's about people having an input on how they want to be governed, how we can correct the electoral malpractices, put in place good systems that will make Senator Wamatangi a president come 2022. Unless if he wants to benefit from Bifaranga via computer. But we want, it's not about we. It's not about we. It's about the future elections. That any person, and also we want to say, we want anyone, a Mijikenda. It's not even about Raila. And you may be surprised that if we corrected this and we had an election, maybe when Raila is not on the ballot, it's not even about him. It is about the future of Kenya, generations to come. Sometimes we can take hardline stands because of tribal affiliation or political correctness, but it's suicidal because history will judge us harshly in due time.
Okay.
And just to the good citizen, we in NASA, we are for the people. We are not like Jubilee.
Are you for the people who work for Safaricom, Bidco?
Yes, of course, yes. Yes, we are, because you see what is happening.
From where they stand, they don't feel like...
Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you. There is nothing like business monopoly in this country. What we are talking about is that we have thought through this. Like in my town in Kakamega, I usually go to buy milk. I go to a supermarket myself. I don't send people. When I went last time, people were buying milk. There was Brookside, Tuso. It was a big heap. It was not being bought, but milk was being bought. There was milk. There will always be an alternative to business. Okay, but you still haven't answered my question, what happens to those people? But I really am out of time.
Yes.
Briefly, please.
Yes, briefly. Bishop, please. Very many people have knelt when you are praying for them. They were not kneeling before you. They were kneeling before God. Will never come kneeling before you. Will never. And the other thing is that it seems NASA have accepted that they only have customers. They don't have owners of companies. They don't have people who are working in those particular companies. That is economic sabotage. At the moment, they have talked about Migigo, people who are arrested there. Yes, cross-border conflict. But because Magufuli is a very well-known friend of Raila, and he have crashed our chicks, and he have arrested our cows and auctioned our cows, they don't want to talk about it. And that is why we are saying the other side of the political divide is actually tribal. because they only talk about their own issues, but they will never mention anything that affect other tribes apart from what affects their own tribes, because the Maasais are affected by the arrest of the cows and actually the auction of the cows in Tanzania, but they are only talking about Migigo. Waiga, let's make it very clear. It is pathetic for us to try and sabotage our economy. Our economy, and as Honorable Matangi have said, as I wind up, as Honorable Matangi have said, that these businesses are founded on principles of business, and they are not founded on who will try to sabotage them, who will tell customers to resist.
Fair enough.
Yes, and they will go on.
Thank you very much.
Come in briefly.
With all the due respect, it is this idea of pride that is from Jubilee leaders that is pushing everybody away. For example, when you are saying, or we have been told, that the only time people can dialogue is after the Uhuru, President Uhuru has been sworn in, then there is no dialogue. What are people dialoguing about? The question here is, we, the NASA team, if there is anybody, I want to respond to that simple question.
That is a mess here.
If there is anybody who was scared about that humble or person in the street, it is the NASA team. And that's why we are saying, even this thing that you are echoing as an economic sabotage, I'm sorry for this, but I think we are not going to hold Kenyans hostage just because Safaricom came and monopolized the mobile communication system. Does not mean that any other person cannot do. What we are saying, especially in the case of Safaricom, with all the humility, because I really feel bad that a company of that magnitude is honored by Kenyan government to deliver something so crucial, and then they give in themselves to pressure to give people a shoddy result. You know, we cannot just keep quiet. No, brother, you know it. We don't have to repeat things. We cannot just keep quiet and say we are going to suffer. Yes, sometimes suffering brings creativity and people can think out of the box. So what we are saying is that in Kenya, I know there was once upon a time a bus company called Lolwe Bus or OTC and the rest. They collapsed and others came up. So the fact that these ones go down does not mean that others cannot thrive. Lastly, I'm saying the concept of trying to tribalize the issue of the islands that I've just mentioned. I just use them as an example because of the issues, they are issues at hand. But these issues of the borders, I think Kenyans have overcried. The other day I was on record talking about this school where some of our pupils were attacked and they were killed. And nobody was there for their rescue. The other day we have listened to cows within Kenya, Pokot, being killed, all of them. Who killed them? It was not Magufuli, it was not Museveni, it is Kenyan police within Kenyan borders. These are the issues, and I want to tell Kenyans as I finish.
As you finish,
what we are fighting about is injustice, corruption, righteousness, unrighteousness, fraudulent way of doing things, and this is what NASA stands for. Last but not least, I wish all the Form 4 candidates still good luck as they do their exam. I
think that's how we leave it. Thank you so much to each of you for giving time. Honorable Hamala, I started with you and I did give you ample time.
I thought it was my chance to give.
I can only allow you then one statement.
Yeah, sure, really. I mean,
one statement.
It would only be fair because they made the last minute. You know, I wanted to react to that statement by that Kenyan. That Kenyans are really tired of elections. You know, they have given politicians enough space to do their thing. And we must remember when we say we the people does not mean we the politicians. It means we all Kenyans. Those lawyers are talking about, those practitioners in medicine, those school children, those are we the people. And so when we hold the country hostage by playing games and shenanigans that are supposed to create gridlock and keep politicians atop the agenda of the country all the time until they get what they want. That's why we get it wrong. And that's why Kenyans
we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Senator Wamatangi, Honorable Sankok, Honorable Odhiambo, Honorable Hamala, for this discussion. And to you watching at home, that is the state of the country from your leaders, all focused on the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice also yesterday gave directions on what the respondents should do and petitioners before the pre-trial conference, and then the cases are heard probably into next week as well. That's a matter we'll be keeping our tabs on. The Power Breakfast Show continues. Willis Raburu, Chef Ali will take it away from here, giving a true picture of why we call this show the Power Breakfast Show, as they make some sumptuous breakfast. Many thanks for being with us. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. See you on the other side with Willis Raburu.